Coming up on this episode of the Village Idiom.
What do you call an Irish baker?
Oh, interesting. An Irish baker. I don't know.
A gingerbread man.
Dum dum da da. Village Idiom.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Just spat on.
Hello and welcome to the Village Idiom.
We are a podcast that every single week we take a popular saying and take an admitted... Well, they're not always popular. Next week's is not so popular. But we take a sometimes popular saying and take an admittedly shallow, hopefully comedic, and once in a while, if we're lucky, interesting dive into its meaning, its usage, its origins. But mostly, we just use that to hang our otherwise directionless conversation on. My name is Jurassic Mark.
And I'm Skitty. It's not always comedic. It's not always informative.
No.
It's not always popular.
It's always... I guess it is always informative.
As
Just
to
not,
like when there's
it's not
no material.
Like useful.
No, sometimes like, well, there's no background on this one.
Oh, that's true. It's not always informative. That's true. Sometimes there's no background.
This is the worst podcast ever.
You'd think a podcast that is committed has dedicated to giving you a weekly background origin story of an idiom that when we come across an idiom that has no background story, we'd skip it. No,
we're not that selfish.
That's how committed we are. If it has no background story, we will tell you.
We're like, it's like literature that regardless of whether it has like any real value or meaning, we're not so selfish as to hold that in.
No,
we want to make sure.
We're not about banning books or idioms.
No, we just tell everything, regardless of how useless it is and how much of your time it wastes. We're prepared to do that.
That's right. That's us.
And so if you like that kind of podcast, you're in the right spot.
Subscribe down below.
This has got to be our 13th episode.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Are we getting close?
We said we'd stop at a dozen.
but we did.
Here's
close.
Here to introduce today's idiom. Here's a little something from. I know you like this show, or at least you've seen the show. Letterkenny. Right? I don't think I've seen a full episode, but our introduction comes from Letterkenny.
I think I got about a baker's dozen here.
That's it. I think I got about it. I can't do that accent. What is that? South Dakota or something?
It's Canadian.
Oh, they're Canadian.
Yeah, that's why
that
I like it.
makes me want to watch it.
Yeah, that's why we like it.
Huh.
Yeah.
Anyway, baker's dozen. He says, I think I got about
in
a
place called, guess what? Letterkenny.
That's the
town. The
town they're in.
Yeah.
I wonder what the background of that is. Is that a real place in Canada?
I don't think so.
No, Letterkenny. Like letter, Letter, Kenny, like my cousin.
Letter, yes.
Huh.
Letterkenny.
Letterkenny. It's got to be something. Sounds Irish.
You think?
Scottish?
I did hear this regarding a baker's dozen.
You're just going to move on from Letterkenny now.
Well, no, as you're talking about
Irish. You got to give me a
Irish.
warning. I'm still caught up in the...
As you're talking about Irish, and I want to drag it back into...
That's also a product by Apple, by the way. This
whole land of... I drag?
Irish.
I see. It's when you want something.
So bad. Okay. Irish.
What do you call an Irish baker?
Oh, interesting. An Irish baker. I don't know.
A gingerbread man.
It took a second. I'm like, a gingerbread. I don't get it.
There you go.
That's actually not bad.
Yeah.
Huh.
What do you call an Italian baker who gives back rubs?
Oh, man. An Italian baker who gives back rubs. I don't know.
That's a tiramisu.
Oh, that's good, too.
The internet. Full of funny things.
Okay, so I'm like, you always come with jokes.
International baking.
You always come with jokes, and so I looked up, give me a joke about baker's dozen or bakery or anything. I got nothing. And you come in hot with 2, fresh out of the oven.
Did you hear about the baker who robbed the bank?
3.
The baker.
Do you have a baker's dozen of baker dozen jokes?
Maybe. No, I don't. Did you hear about the baker who robbed a bank?
No.
He came in buns a-glazing.
Stupid. Did you make that one up? That sounds like a Skinny original.
No, it's not made up. No, the internet is full of bakery jokes. Yeah, so it's this idea of I'm sure we'll get into it in origins, but it's just a phrase you use. It's a baker's dozen.
Yeah, it's a baker's dozen.
It's a little,
which, if we haven't said, means 13.
13.
Actually, we'll find out in a little bit later when we get into the origins. Usually means 13. Could mean 14.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like the idea. It's just so ingrained, and like this is one of the idioms we actually use,
That's true.
like all the time.
Yeah.
It's baker's dozen.
Yeah. But how often does the number 13 come up that you do? Like, it is common.
And like a coven of witches.
Is a baker's dozen?
Yeah,
What?
like all the time.
Is it 13?
Yes,
A coven is 13.
I think
Is this
so.
a real thing?
I think so.
What?
Well, I think it is.
Huh.
Because you have to go Jesus plus the 12 disciples.
That's a coven?
No, not for them, but the premise.
Oh, real? Are you making this up?
I-
Is that how a coven is?
Maybe.
Like we're like blaspheming Jesus by having
I think there's something to
head
do with
witch
that.
and 12 disciples. We are 12 disciples. We are
Something like that.
Is that why 13?
I'm not up on all my coven trivia, but yeah, I don't know. See, you just say stuff like that, like I say it to you, and then it's like, really? Because that makes sense. That's why it's 13.
Interesting. I would have
but
thought
13 is lucky, isn't it?
I would no. There's no 13th floor on hotels.
Oh, that's right. It's unlucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, the 13th disciple was really lucky. He's not even mentioned.
His name was Lucky. You got Bartholomew, Matthew.
His name is Todd Baker.
There is Luke, John, Lucky. I say that, but
Simon the Zealot and Lucky the Baker.
my grandpa's. I don't actually even know his real name.
You don't know your grandpa's real name?
No, he's Grandpa Lucky.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure his name was Lucky. I honestly don't know.
Wow. It sounds
I think
like a
it's
charmer.
Lucky. Yeah, what do you know there for sure? That was his.
You
Opener.
actually don't. That's what he said?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, that was like his opener. Like instead of saying, "Hey, how you doing?" Hey, what do you know there for sure?
That's fantastic.
Yeah, Grandpa Lucky.
That's great. I love
Who
that.
knows? Maybe his name was actually Lucky. It's kind of a dog's name.
Is this your paternal side?
Yes. Well, I have a convoluted family tree.
But only one mom and dad.
Yeah,
So it's
mine's-
either your mom.
I do have, so it's on my dad's side.
Okay.
But yeah, there's like,
But
yeah.
maybe not by
Yeah.
surname.
Oh yeah, all those biology
Got
related
it.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah,
So I'm going to, this has nothing to do with today, but I hired a new employee.
oh, interesting.
Not in the studio here, my side hustle.
Yeah,
And his last name is Bug, Bugg.
Jim.
Yeah, you know Jim?
I know Jim Bug.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I hired him.
that's great.
But I said, hey, what's the background of your last name? And I kid you not, he goes, do you know the word buggery?
No,
I'm like, I do.
I think so. Does it mean
I'm
something
like, tell me it
different?
doesn't come from that. He goes, yep. I'm like, no, it doesn't. He goes, yeah, not the definition you're thinking of.
Wow.
So he right away pulls up family, whatever, ancestry. I don't know what he pulled up.
Like I'm Frank Cooper. Oh, you're the Cooper's
Cooper,
son.
Baker. Like,
Oh, your dad repairs shoes.
so
Or
that's
I'm
the tie-in.
cobbler.
Where Baker can be the last name.
You're Bugger.
Buggery.
Oh.
So he's like,
Your
definition
Bugger
of the
son.
surname Bug comes from Buggy, Bugger, like all these things. But literally definition is oddball or weird man. And I'm like, this is amazing. I can't believe that's what your last name means.
Bug-eyed.
And if you know him, it's quite fitting.
He's pretty cool.
Yeah. But he's a funny guy. He's oddball. Like,
Musician.
fits in with everybody or not.
Well, there you go.
Anyway, I just
of
thought...
all aspects of buggery,
Speaking
being
of-
weird is not the worst of them.
No, that's for sure. So speaking of last names, tying it back in today's idiom,
What is batten then?
I don't know what it means actually.
Like batten
well,
down
I know
the
it,
hatches.
I know it comes from Mountbatten or Battenberg.
Well, that was your parents.
My parents?
Your dad
Yeah.
was Mountbatten. Yeah.
No, my mom.
Oh, I see. Sorry. I can't talk about your mother like that. Okay, so
No,
that's
bring
so
it
terrible.
back to the idiom. Baker's dozen.
So batten, but you say batten down the hatches.
That it is the
So
same
it means
same spelling and everything. but
Close something.
disconnected.
Up. Close it up tight.
Sure, that's where it comes from.
Shut that down.
Does that help if I say yes to this?
Yes. Makes it end. I'll just shut up now.
That could be a baseball reference, like who's up. Okay, actual church picnic when I was a kid. My uncle is up to bat, softball game, church picnic.
Okay.
And I'm in the background just listening to these two adults who I don't know say, who's up next? And they're like, Doug Batten. Yeah, Doug, what's his last name? Batten. Yeah, him. It was a who's on first moment.
During baseball.
Who's Batten? Doug is. What's his last name? Batten. Yes, him. Isn't that crazy? Like I don't know, 11 going, oh, this is so great.
This is real.
No, the last name, bringing it back to our idiom, Baker's Dozen, the last name, Baker. Do you know the movie Cheaper by the Dozen?
A little bit. Are you talking about the one with Steve Martin?
Yeah, Steve Martin,
Okay.
and I can't remember
Steve Martin.
the mom's name, and they have 12 kids. That's the gist of the whole show. Their last name is Baker. And they didn't call the movie Baker's Dozen.
That's so funny.
And I'm like, that had to have been talked about.
Wow.
That there's a Baker family with a dozen kids.
Well, that was clearly
But it's
the
never
subtle hint.
it's never said in the movie. Like an easy line, the Baker's Dozen, it's not called
Oh,
that.
you're the Baker's Dozen.
No, Cheaper by the Dozen. Let's call it that. But they're bakers.
So undoubtedly,
Undoubtedly.
there was some sort of screening and
Probably.
names run through. It's like cheaper by the dozen. Because there's other dozen things, right?
Is there?
Isn't there?
Maybe they're just like, if we call it Baker's Dozen, but there's only 12 kids and not 13, that's confusing. Yeah, but we're the Baker family.
We're the
and
Baker,
we have a dozen
We're
kids.
the Baker's Coven.
So, so we know that a Baker's Dozen is 13. What's a Baker's Coven? Unlucky 13.
Okay, there it is.
Yeah.
It's a bunch. It's the Baker's Witches.
Anyway, I just thought that was interesting that the movie's called Cheaper by the Dozen and their last name is Baker. There's no way that's
there was
coincidence.
guaranteed the original name was Baker's Dozen,
Right.
And then it was put into screening, and it's like, this name's terrible. Like, that's awful.
Right.
Let's call it Cheaper by the Dozen. Okay, that's also terrible, but let's call it that. Deal.
Dirty Dozen is taken.
Yeah. See, there is other dozens.
Cheaper by the Coven.
See, that's the sequel. The sequel.
The sequel.
Yeah. The kids all get
They
into
should
some
have. The sequel
occultic
should
thing.
have been Cheaper by the Baker's Dozen.
Maybe.
Anyway, part 13. You have another joke?
No.
Oh,
No, I'm okay. I don't roll like that. I did come across this. It's not even funny. It's just interesting.
perfect.
Dozen comes from French douzain,
Yeah.
which in turn comes from Latin duodecim, 2 plus 10.
Oh, why is it called 12?
Because in Latin, it was duodecim.
That sounds like 12.
Oh, I see.
I get the dozen connection. See,
why-
informative.
Why do we
check.
call check?
What do we have left?
Not educational, well, possible. Those jokes were not really that amusing.
No.
Gingerbread Man cracked me up.
Yeah, that was good. Okay. We should have a checkbox with the 4 things we say we are, and just turn around and every time we hit one. Okay, there's informative. There's educational. Actually, informative's not on there. What do we have? Educational, interesting. Interesting? Not yet. Comedic. We think it's funny. That should count.
And that's who we do it for.
Anyway, and meaning. Yeah, it's the same.
Well,
Anyway.
so why is it 12? I have nothing for you.
Okay. Because it doesn't come up later. It's not like
Well-
you get to 20, 21, 2012. Like there's some weirdness at 11, 12. Why not isn't... Why,
two
why
L's.
after 10 isn't it 1 teen, 2 teen, 3 teen?
So 12 is based off of 2 halves. 12. Okay? You following me?
I mean, no. How is 12 2 halves?
Well, if there's 12 and then there's 2 halves, that would be 6 each, which equals 12.
Okay.
So they had the original dozen.
But
eggs.
it's not based on 6.
No, so this is where this is where I'm going.
Okay, go.
So it's there's 2 groupings of 6. It's
Yeah.
two halves.
Yeah.
2 halves. Is
6 of
12.
one, half a dozen of the other.
There you go.
It's 2 halves.
2 halves.
2 halves. There's a silent L in there. 12s. 12s. 12s.
Yeah. So it doesn't make any sense, but there's
Yeah.
a little bit of something to bat around the water cooler.
My
today,
daughter always said
if you want to get fired.
15 instead of 15. And I'm like,
That makes
she's
sense.
not wrong.
Yeah, that makes sense.
14, 15, 16.
teen.
It should be. 1 teen, 2 teen, 3 teen, 14, 15. Because the rest of it, starting at 20, does the 10 cycle.
The pattern?
Yeah. Anyway,
Well,
11, 12, 13, 15.
don't say we never tried to not
Ruin
teach you
it
nothing.
oh, wait, it's not 55. It's 55. Never mind. It's not all the way through.
And then there's numbers like that are prime. There's just an endless amount of useless things we could talk about.
And some are Optimus.
Well, we should actually find out where this little gem comes from.
That would be the, what, educational part?
Let's see.
All right.
I said some words, where'd they go? Where'd they go? No one can know. I turned around, I looked behind. Those words came from another mind. Origin.
Oh, cut it off a little early there. So there is no background story. No, just kidding.
That sounds about right.
So yeah, you can request a dozen eggs from a farmer. You can request a dozen steaks from a butcher, which you did today. Did you not? Request a dozen steaks from a butcher?
Well, I didn't want a dozen. I wanted 2 batches of 6.
12.
12.
You can request a dozen pencils from a traveling office supplies salesman, and you'll almost certainly, every single time, receive how many? 12 of your chosen item. Mistakes might happen. You might get 11. You might get 13. But a baker's dozen is commonly understood to mean 13. Bakers are not bad at math. There is a background to this. It's widely believed that this particular phrase originated from the practice. And did you have in your head kind of what this is about, or are you going in blind?
I'd heard loosely.
Yeah, I definitely, as soon as I read it again, I'm like, oh yeah, I did know that. But it's widely believed that this phrase originated from the practice of medieval. I really emphasize it like it was mid-evil.
Medieval.
12.
The fruits of the
medieval English bakers giving an extra loaf when selling a dozen in order to avoid being penalized for selling short weight. So, cool story. I'm just like, oh, that makes sense. They didn't want to get in trouble. And unlike many of our idioms where it's like, this is what everybody believes, not true. This actually seems to be bang, nail on the head, exactly where it came from. So, firstly, the practice of adding an extra loaf originated several centuries before the phrase was a phrase, or at least a common phrase. So, England has long history of the regulation of trade. I think still pretty much. Bakers were regulated by a trade guild called, and is this not the best name for any guild?
The Lollipop Guild.
Pretty close. The Worshipful Company of Bakers. That's great,
Wow.
right?
That's quite prestigious for
Yeah.
bread.
So this guild called the Worshipful Company of Bakers, which dates back to at least the reign of Henry II, which is 1100s.
It's like a Nicolas Cage movie.
Second half of the 1100s. What? The Worshipful? That's a great movie title. The Worshipful Company of Bakers. Yeah, it really is. Starring Nicolas Cage. Whoa. Anyway, the law that caused the bakers to be so...
The way you did your whoa was very Bill and Ted.
That's what I was going to say. It was too Keanu Reeves, wasn't
Okay,
it?
yeah. That's funny
I felt
that you
it
knew
when
that.
it came out.
Did you know that?
Yeah. So the law was that made the bakers be so careful was called, this is the name of the law. So this is so we got the Worshipful Company of Bakers, a size of bread and ale. I'm not sure if it's a size or a size, A-S-S-I-Z-E.
Well, that's a good question.
A size of bread and ale. So in 1266, Henry III revived an ancient statute that regulated the price of bread according to the price of wheat. So bakers or brewers who gave short measure as to what was ordered could be fined, pilloried, or flogged. I had to look up pilloried, but it's what you think it is. As in 1477, when the Chronicle of London reported that a baker called John Mundu was, here's another fun word, shrived. Do you know shrived?
No, I don't
So,
know. Could be pilloried either. I don't like the sounds of it.
Pilloried is beaten.
Okay.
Shrived is forced to confess your guilt. So you were shrived to do so. He was shrived upon the pillory for cellaring. Now I'm adding syllables. He was shrived.
I couldn't tell. Maybe it's a word.
He was shrived upon pillory for cellaring bread
Celery.
that was underweight. Secondly, It's not quite so neat an explanation that whenever bakers sold 12 loaves and they added another identical loaf to make 13, they would have had just as much concern selling 11 loaves. But, there's no baker's 11.
Right.
So
Ocean's 11.
You don't really order maybe buns, but you don't order bread by the dozen.
Definitely do buns.
So it's kind of funny that they call it a baker's dozen, because they would have added a loaf no matter how many you ordered. They would have added a loaf to your order to make sure, because it was regulated by weight, not by number.
You've made bread.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's just does its thing. You don't know what it's doing.
What do you mean?
Like when you're making a bread, like what's a loaf of, like if you go like what's a loaf of bread weigh?
Oh, what does it weigh? I don't know. What
Right,
does the safe weigh?
It's a grocery store.
Oh.
but that thing's rising, and like, do you let it proof twice? Like, what kind of bread is it? Like, is it a rye or something that's dense, or
Right.
multi-grain that's just like compacted with seeds or things? Because that's going to be heavier. And so I think it'd be really hard without scales.
And if the English government was, infiltrating regulations upon bakers based, like your bread is going to correlate with the cost of wheat. What if they made gluten-free bread?
Right.
It's
There's no wheat in this.
You can't find me.
Right. You couldn't be pilloried.
You can't pillar me.
You don't try to pillar me.
Pillory me with your cellaring bread. I will shrive not.
So so that would make no sense based on, like, I'll throw in another loaf. Like, was that like, how much does that weigh? Or don't. But it seems like you should have had like a scale.
Yeah,
Like,
they should have.
Keep piling on bread until there was a scale.
I actually have that written here somewhere. So bakers weren't exactly known for having their own scale. They could have monitored it and made sure they were following the rule.
Insane. 'Cause
instead,
baking
they just
is very precise.
here's some extra bread.
Like, you don't just like, just toss in a little scoop of this, a little of that. It's
I don't know. I think back then it was more done by like one handful, 2 pinches.
I will tell you this. So
one snort.
I've been brewing mead. As for Christmas, I got a mead making kit, which I've never even had mead.
Okay.
But I'm making mead. I've yet to
What
have
does mead taste like?
I don't
Is
know.
it barley based?
No, so it's honey wine.
Oh, that's what mead is?
That's exactly what I said. Okay, so
Mead-
if you take
sounds
fruit,
so much more masculine
if
than
you take grapes,
honey wine.
okay, so if you take grapes,
I love mead. I love honey wine. Do you hear what I'm saying? Same thing.
it's like the friend who has
What kind of mead? Honey wine.
the friend's. I'll have a beer. I'll have a beer. I'll have a cider.
Yeah.
I'll have honey wine.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
so anyways, so it's so this whole fermenting process of like adding yeast and sugar and water, it is
Yeah.
so depending on where that sugar comes from. So if it comes from honey, it's mead.
Really?
If it comes from grapes, it's wine. Yeah. That's it. The end.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, so
That's the bonus info.
we'll let you know how that goes.
Educational. Check.
So I say that to say when in preparation, they're very, and so like all the instructions, it's very important that you sanitize this. It's very important that there's no weird molds or any weird, bacteria. It's very important that you sanitize this. And I'm like, all I'm thinking is
Just
like,
squirt some hand sanitizer.
it's like Vikings in like some middle-aged scenario. How concerned about hygiene.
Exactly.
And so when you see all these like tavern things, Lord of the Rings, or another thing of ale,
They're putting their lives in hands with what they drank, basically.
So yes, but it wasn't like, have you sanitized the barrel? I've never seen that in any movie. Yeah,
That's really funny. So continuing on, the addition was called when they threw in an extra loaf, extra bread, extra whatever they did to make sure they were giving the purchaser what they were required to put in. The addition was called the inbread or the vantage loaf.
That's not what I thought inbred meant, but continue.
Yeah, exactly. When selling in quantity to middlemen or wholesalers, they would add an extra loaf or two, which is why it's sometimes 14, not 13. When selling single loaves, the worshipful company, by the way, still exists.
What do you call an Appalachian baker?
Okay, what?
I don't know. I'm trying to cook up some inbred thing.
Hillbilly pillory.
I don't know.
So yeah. Anyway, they're they say that this goes on in living memory of what it was back then. The inbred is still given with the worshipful company that still exists. So let's see. So that's the actual origin of the thing. Here's the phrase. So the phrase goes back to at least 1599, because don't forget, this practice was way, way, way before this became an idiom. I'll kind of go quick here, but here's an odd quotation from John Cook's to quoque. Say that word, Quoque. Quoque. Probably does mean rooster.
It's a bird noise.
Anyway, from 1599. And this is what he says. Mine's a baker's dozen, Master Bubble, tell your money. That's almost a Yoda line there. Mine's a baker's dozen, Master Bubble, tell your money.
It's like a soccer chant. Like when they're just
Mine's a baker's dozen, Master Bubble, tell your money. Mine's a baker.
Well, it's like all those soccer chants. What did he say? What is that?
So that phrase, the phrase is related to the practice described by in John Goodwin's of being filled with the Spirit, referring back to the same quotation, 1665. This is what the quote says: "As that which we call the inbred is given into the dozen, there is nothing properly paid or given for it, but only for the dozen." So, in other words, it's free. There you go. By 1864, it was included in, this one, A Dictionary of Modern Slang, Cant and Vulgar Words. I think that's the book you gave me, right?
Of that, yeah.
I think it's right over there on the shelf. There you go. So the description in that book, it says, this consists of 13 or 14, the surplus number called the inbred, being thrown in for fear of incurring the penalty for short weight. There you go. History of the practice, history of the phrase. You're welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Baker's dozen, being generous so you don't have to incur getting pillared.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I don't want to get pillared.
No, we've covered pillories, shriving, buggery.
It's been quite a day.
And inbred.
We should put a cap on these pillories and get into the end game.
Riddling is a game we like to play. It takes a two-part trivia-based question, requires a two-part overlapping answer, overlapping by sound, syllable, word, or word. So, for example, we left you last week. In our episode 266, our idiom was apple of my eye, and we left you with this one. Eve had this term of endearment for Adam, but he referred to himself as the man's who builds the boat. I'm going to a little shout out to Mr. Brandner for answering this one this week.
Thank you, T-Bone. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm going to go with apple of my eyes the buy.
And that's how you play Riddling. It's not apple of my eye. It's not eyes the buy. It's apple of my eyes the buy.
Fantastic. Right. Okay.
So I got a couple for today.
I have got a couple, and I'm going to go first because I think from things you've said that we may have some duplicates going on.
Okay, go.
I just because of some of your lead-ins. I'm
Okay.
like, here we go. Okay. She co-founded the PTL Club with 13, not 12, bread loaves.
That's great. Give it to you again.
She co-founded the PTL Club with 13, not 12 bread loaves.
That would be everybody's favorite Tammy Faye Baker's Dozen.
That's it.
That's great. I don't have that one.
Okay.
So if that's what you thought.
I did. I was like, oh.
I actually have three.
Okay.
Because one I thought was kind of I'm going to give you the cheater one first, and you don't like it, I'll give you another one, and we'll still have one for everybody else.
Okay.
Okay, how about this one?
Yep.
You got to really think on this one. 13 loaves is what makes you stronger. 13 loaves is what makes you stronger. Dude, what makes you stronger? Something that
doesn't kill you.
Yeah. I'm cheating.
I'm
Start with doesn't.
Oh. Okay. Baker's doesn't make you stronger.
No, Baker's doesn't kill you. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Doesn't. Wow. You know what? That works.
You like it?
Yeah, it works.
Oh, it doesn't cheat. It just adds a T. Doesn't. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's legit.
Okay. So that's mine.
Okay.
Check.
I did not get it.
Here, I'll give you another one since I have a bonus one. I'll give you one more then. This is where the watermelon grow, and they give you 13. This is where the watermelon grow, and they give you 13.
I'm going to go with down by the Baker's Dozen.
That's right.
Okay, good. I've got another one here for you. He starred in Cheaper by the Dozen, and he's a good fella.
One more time.
He starred in Cheaper by the Dozen, and he's a good fella.
So I'm going to go with Steve Martin Short. No, Steve Martin Scorsese.
You got your Martins. Yes, that was it. Good job.
All right, well, I got one more. We will leave that dangling wing out there for everyone to play along at home with the at-home version of this board game.
Ano instead of dangle ano?
Nope, it's dangle. It's like dangle. It's long A sound. Dangle.
Okay, fair enough. You can reach out to us on Instagram at the.village.idiom or email us thevillageidiompodcast@gmail.com, or whether it's the Facebook, the YouTubes, or the X at 3 Minutes Gone.
Here it is. Howard Cunningham's Son is the movie with the Baker family and their 12 kids. Howard Cunningham's Son is the movie with the Baker family and their 12 kids. This isn't the greatest one. I should have picked a different one to leave hanging out there.
It's good, so it gets it done. And that is 3 Minutes Gone.
Right, there you go.
That's good. Well, Village children, have an amazing day.
Seriously.
I hope it's Fantab. And all these assorted cool, what's another Fantab type awful phrase to send them off with?
I have a baker's dozen of a day.
I hope it's scrumptious.
Okay.
Oh, man, it's just terrible. Just trying some new endings. That's not working.
Related to bread, then. Like a delicious,
I hope your day
fluffy,
is flaky.
Sourdough.
Hope you have a flaky day. You meet some flaky people. Have a croissant day, my friends. Croissant. Je m'appelle Skinner.
Je m'appelle Jurassic Mark with a C.
And this is 13 Minutes Gone.
Time with you is a baker's dozen.
That's 3 minutes gone.